Hi class and welcome to another recorded session. Today we will be dealing with the next novel in our syllabus, and this is The Shadow Lines by Amitav Ghosh. I'm sure you have already read about the biography of Amitav Ghosh, and so we're going directly into the novel with a little bit of, with a little bit of introduction rather to Amitav Ghosh. So, The Shadow Lines is a novel written by the Indian author Amitav Ghosh, who was born in Kolkata in the year 1956. He completed his undergraduate and master's degree from the University of Delhi, and then he went to Oxford, where he went and received a PhD. The Circle of Reason, a novel published in the year 1986, is his first novel, and this is the novel that was preceding Shadow Lines. Okay, so it was right before Shadow Lines. Shadow Lines is the second one. And his best known novel, but is the novel called as The Glass Palace, which was published in the year 2000. He has many awards to his name, including the Jnanpith and Padma Shri awards, which is, the highest citizen award given to citizens of India. If we look a little bit about the background of the novel, it was published in the year 1988. So see, Circle of Reason was in 1986. 2 years later, he published The Shadow Lines in the year 1988. This novel has won the Sahitya Academy Award along with many other awards. Okay, and this is actually a novel series. All right, a novel series. I've not put the names because that is an activity that you have to do. You have to find the novel series. This is also a question that will come in your net exam and all. The novel series. Identify the novel series. So please go and look it up. So in the novel series, The Shadow Lines is the second one. Okay, he has two novel series. Please do look it up. This is the first one, and there's another one with the Sea of Poppies and all of that. All right, so please look it up while you study about this novel. The background, the historical background rather, of this particular novel is it's set in the background of the World War II partition riots. Okay, so that is historically a lot is happening. Okay, the World War II or the Second World War was one which made people lose belief in life, which made people feel like life is meaningless. Why? Because the atom bombs were released, right? And they saw the amount of destruction that humans could do onto other humans. Okay, and the futility of war, all of those ideas came into the minds of people after the Second World War. And this is the background, and many things that happen in the novel will be directly influenced on these background events. Okay, and that's why I want to discuss them. The next event that influences this work is the partition of India. All right, even though this was published in 1988, the time period within the novel is during the time in the late 1940s. Okay, so that is the time period within the novel. And what happens here is that due to the partition, I'm sure you are aware of what happened during the partition. It was a result of the British policy of divide and rule, and they ensured that when they left India, they completely destroyed it internally. And what happened is that as a result of their policies, India, what was formerly India, decided to divide itself into India and Pakistan. And even though that sounds really fancy, what ensured was a mass massacre of people are directly related to the partition. Why? Because when the partition was done, there were many people who were living in the sidelines. Okay, I can't think of a word right now. The sidelines of these states, especially in the states of Bengal, in the states of Punjab, in the states of Kashmir, right? So there were many people who were living there. Okay, and when they heard the idea that Pakistan is going to be a Muslim majority land, okay, suddenly all the Muslims that were living here, they decided that it would be better to go there. Similarly, all the Hindus that were living there, they were afraid of what will happen to them, and they came here. They tried to come to India. So there was a mass migration that resulted as a result of the partition. And what happened is that When this mass migration was happening, there were hooligans who were attacking. Train loads of people were killed, okay, meaninglessly killed only because they belonged to a particular religion. Train loads of people were killed, women were abducted and raped. It was a very, very violent time. There were riots everywhere, in every corner of the world. There were riots, even though they are not the bordering areas, okay, but still there were riots. All Hindu Muslim riots were happening. People were afraid of their own neighbors. Okay, so that is the background that we have to remember when we read this novel. So this novel is not divided into chapters. It is divided into two parts, and these two parts are called Going Away and Coming Home. Okay, and just like the God of Small Things, this is another thing that this novel was also published during the same time period when God of Small Things was published. Okay, so it has many many same stylistic techniques that are used, and just like the God of Small Things, this novel is also written in a fragmented non-linear style. That means the chronology of the events that happen are all mixed up. It is not written in a A's to B, B's to C manner. Okay, so it's like C comes first, then A, then D. All right, so that is the style of writing in this particular novel. Going on to the characters, all right, we have the narrator who remains unnamed throughout this novel, and he's the one who's narrating, like actually he's telling a story, all right, and there is his uncle Trideep. Okay, that's his uncle, and Thama, who is his grandmother, and Ela, who is his cousin but is also his love interest. He's in love with her. And there are two English characters called May and Nick. There are also many other secondary characters, but these are the people who are major to the plot line. All right. So, part one. Before we go to part one, we have to remember that in this novel there is basically two families that are brought to us. Okay, one is the family of the narrator, who are Bengalis, all right, who are belonging to Calcutta, and the second family is a London-based family called the Price family. All right, and due to some connection, they were related to each other, and that connection that they have with those London family members comes up in the novel. There's the unnamed, when we begin the story, okay, the unnamed narrator is there, and he's telling us the story of his uncle, and he begins the story when his uncle was 8 years old. And what is interesting is that at this point in time, when he's telling the story about his 8-year-old uncle, he is also 8-year-old. So he's seen comparing himself to his 8-year-old uncle and trying to imagine if he looked similar to him. All right, so throughout the novel there is one thing that we see, that the narrator is very, very interested in Trideep. He's almost worshipping his uncle Trideep. Okay. Then we have Thama, who's the grandmother, and in the first chapter itself, we see her disapproval of Trideep. All right, and the story, it begins in London in the year 1980s. All right, just give me a minute. So the story begins 13 years before the narrator's birth. Okay, he's narrating a story to his cousins. All right, and he's telling the story about his uncle Trideep. All right, and it begins 13 years before the narrator's birth. That means we can understand that there is a 13-year difference between the narrator and the Trideep. All right, and this story begins in the year 1939. All right, where Trideep's parents, Maya Devi and Sahib is what her husband is called. That is not his name, but he's called as the Sahib because he has a very, very fancy job. Okay, he has a government job and everything. So Maya Devi and Sahib, they moved to England. All right. Why they do this is because Sahib is one second. Yes, so Sahib is ill, and that's why he goes to London thinking that they'll have better opportunities there. So the narrator, who's also 8 years old at this point, tries to imagine Trideep, okay? And he tries to imagine Trideep as an 8-year-old and tries to find similarity between the two. And right now in the story, when he's talking about the 8-year-old Trideep is now 29 years old in the present. Okay, so in the past, he's talking about 8-year-old Trideep. So Trideep is 29 and the narrator is 8 years old. And they're talking about the past where Trideep was 8 years old and he moved to England. All right. Then we come to the grandmother. Okay, so the grandmother is there, Thama, and she disapproves of Trideep. All right, the narrator idealizes Trideep, but the grandmother disapproves, and that's why the grandmother says that no, Trideep did not look like you. Okay, she does not like Trideep in the beginning of the novel. Thama doesn't like Trideep, and she insists. The problem that she has with him is that she feels Trideep keeps wasting his time. All right, she feels he's not using his time wisely, and that he's not a good role model for the children. Okay, and Trideep does not seem to do much, and he doesn't. Even though he doesn't do much around the household, he doesn't have a proper job and everything. So that is what disturbs Thama. But Trideep at this point is actually doing his PhD, and even though Thama herself is an academician, she is a teacher, but still she feels like he's not honest enough, and that's why even if he does go and join a university after doing his PhD, it will not be good because he's not honest enough, is what Thama feels. All right. And she also does not like him because one of the other reasons is that his family is rich. Okay, they were in England at one point in time, so his family is rich, and that also irritates her. Okay, and uh, and irritates her, but at the same time, because they are rich, Thama wants to be associated with their family, because from that we can understand that Thama is someone who gives importance to social stature. Okay, and that's why she does not like Trideep, because he does not care about his social standing. But at the same time, because he's from a rich family, she does wants to associate with him. All right. And the strange relationship between Thama and Trideep becomes important towards the end of the novel. So that's why I'm describing that to you. All right. And Thama also feels like Trideep keeps visiting her, all right, in her home. And she feels the only reason that he comes there is to nurse his stomach. That means he always has stomach problems, stomach pain. All right. And he comes so that Thama will come and Thama will heal him with her, homemade remedies. And she calls a homemade omelette that she makes that heals his stomach ache. Okay. So that is the reason why he comes. All right. And this is called as Trideep's gastric problem that he has, which is only healed by Thama's medicine, by homemade medicine. All right. And he's always going to the bathroom, and that also irks Thama, because she feels like when someone comes and visits, they should not go directly to the bathroom, but they should talk a little and all right. And she does not let Trideep stay for long at their house. She believes that he will be a negative influence on the narrator and his father. All right, his father and the narrator, no one is named throughout the story. um, the mention of Trideep's gastric in this point in the story is important. Why? Because it shows us that the narrator is a child, and for a child, things like gastric and all, it's very very interesting, and that's why he's mentioning it. It shows the point of view in which the novel is written at this point, as the point of view of a child. All right. And from this point, we are taken to the major events of the novel. When the narrator is young, he keeps running into Trideep when he's young. Okay, he's always meeting Trideep, and Trideep is the only one in the family who spent most of his life in Calcutta, because the rest of the family is very very rich and they keep traveling. All right. And Thama is offended by this, because she feels like even though he has money, he's not traveling. That means he's very frivolous, and he never got married, he doesn't have a real job. All of those things irks Thama very much. Instead, he lives with his grandmother. Not Thama, he has his own grandmother. Okay, so he's living with his grandmother in Calcutta. is what it is. Now, yes, I didn't explain that relationship. Maya Devi, who is Trideep's mother, is actually Thama's sister, okay, younger sister. So that is the relationship that they have. And she also does not like him because she feels he keeps standing on street corners and gossiping. Okay, and even though Trideep is doing a PhD in archaeology, that does not seem to matter to Thama. And even when she talks, all right, she shows him how she actually feels